extended, so you got a little bit of freedom.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, well, thank you. I'm glad somebody appreciates it. Yeah, because there's been a lot of discussion about it, so. Oh, yeah? All righty.
Good morning. Welcome to our Seniors for Peace monthly program. Today we're going to have our guest speaker is Mackenzie Coulter-Kern, and you're going to share some of your background maybe. Mm-hmm. I didn't print anything out.
That's
she
right.
has an extensive and very excellent background for her current job. And so she hopefully will explain some of that. Yeah. And I've heard her speak before, and some of you have too, I'm sure. So let's give her a welcome.
Wow, thank you. And just so I'm mindful from time, does this end at 11 normally? Is that right? Okay, perfect. Well, hi everybody. So yes, my name is Mackenzie Coulter-Kern, and I'm really happy to be here with you all. We moved to Manchester when I was about 9, and my parents both teach psychology at Manchester University, and so I grew up in the community and then moved away, went to a Brethren school, Juniata College out in Pennsylvania. I don't know if anybody else here went to, some Juniata graduates. And so I went to Juniata College and majored in international studies and Spanish, and wasn't quite sure what I was going to do after college. And when I moved back to Manchester, there was a job to teach English language learners and high school Spanish. And so I taught ELL for the community schools for 6 months, and then high school Spanish. And then I found out about an international school in the Dominican Republic funded by the Mahatma Gandhi Foundation. So I decided to move to the Dominican Republic. About 3 weeks after I met my now husband, Sam McFadden. Some of you might have known his grandpa Wilbur McFadden, his grandma Joyce, that were here at Timbercrest for a long time. And so I taught kindergarten at an international school in the Dominican Republic, and the goal of that school was in a town called Las Terrenas on the Samana Peninsula. And there was a large expat community, a large Haitian community, and a large Dominican community. And they really used education as a way to provide equal opportunity for everybody and kind of bring together community members across some of those racial divides. And so that was kind of a mission of this school, was using education as a way to lift up and build bridges in the community. After that, I moved to Aguascalientes, Mexico, where I did a Fulbright and taught English at a university there. And then I did my master's and PhD in Hispanic linguistics to teach college Spanish at Indiana University in Bloomington. And in between my master's and PhD, my husband and I moved to Sevilla, Spain for a year, and I taught at a university there. Have any of you ever heard of the Opera Carmen? I think it's set in a cigar factory. So the university that I taught at in Sevilla was in that cigar factory that opera is based on. So it was our rooms were very long, skinny rooms for teaching, where they used to roll cigars and things. So it was an interesting place to get to teach. And so that was a little bit of my background. I had originally, because I taught ELL learners in Manchester, I had originally been interested in teaching college Spanish, because I thought, we need so much more English learner support in our schools. If only I could teach Spanish at the university and get more help in the schools. And so that was kind of what led me to pursue my PhD in Hispanic linguistics. And then when I moved back to Manchester, there weren't any teaching positions available, but there was an opportunity to lead the Wabash County Diversity Coalition. And so my career path kind of changed, but I think in a lot of ways it's been a better fit for me than I would have anticipated. And so the Wabash County Diversity Coalition started in 2019 under the leadership of Mayor Long. It was kind of coincided with the death of George Floyd and wanting to make sure that Wabash County was welcoming to everybody. We have also been experiencing population decline in Wabash County for the last 40 years. And so we were also approaching welcoming work as a way to help grow Wabash County. So there were a lot of reasons that the Diversity Coalition was formed and was important. Originally, it was a little bit more of an informal organization, and different leaders and human resource representatives from different institutions would come and meet monthly or every other month to discuss diversity issues, but they didn't really have a super tight agenda. Sorry. And so when I came on, my background in my PhD was often doing needs analyses, which is like a needs assessment, where you develop surveys and focus groups to develop a plan based on the needs of an area. And so I kind of used that background to do a diversity needs analysis for Wabash County, where we surveyed 50 different businesses and stakeholders about what were the diversity needs in Wabash County. And then we also knew that we had a growing Spanish-speaking population. And so I went door to door interviewing Spanish speakers, asking about what kind of things they needed, what would be helpful. And then that data became our agenda for our first year. And so in 2024, January of 2024, we were formalized under the fiscal sponsorship of the Community Foundation. So that we can adopt their 501c3 status, their nonprofit status when we're applying for a grant. It's also provided us with really great mentorship opportunities. Julie Garber is a big mentor and big advocate and person that has helped get the Diversity Coalition going. And so we're able to ask questions, receive help as kind of a new program under there, or fiscal sponsored organization underneath the Community Foundation. So that's been a really exciting thing. And then we use that needs analysis to develop our agenda for the first year. Our mission is the Wabash County Diversity Coalition is created to inspire a safe and nurturing environment by building relationships, educating, and celebrating the uniqueness of every person. And so our core goal is to celebrate the diversity, all the different types of diversity, not just racial and ethnic diversity, but all the different types existing in Wabash County. Our core values are relationship, inspiration, safety, and education. We started in 2019 under Mayor Long. As I mentioned, we were formalized in 2024. And then we also work a lot on local partnerships. So we work on building relationships with local businesses, education facilities, healthcare, and mental wellness facilities, as well as individuals in the community. And you can kind of see on your handout a little bit, I'll go right to this. Our three main things that we work on. So I think of our work as being three different kind of prongs underneath an umbrella. One prong is safety, one prong is education, and one prong is outreach. And so for safety, we have helped develop a human rights commission. So if there are any human rights issues that come up in North Manchester, those can be reported somewhere. We've also developed a listening committee for Wabash County. So anybody experiencing any human rights violations kind of has this formalized process that they can go through. We've started doing listening sessions at Manchester University, as well as the Wabash Carnegie Library on belonging. And so we did one of those and had community leaders and college students come, and we had about 50 people attend and talk about what are the people, places, and organizations that make you feel like you belong in Wabash County. It was a great chance for Manchester University, because of all of their different programs and sports, brings a lot of students of color to Wabash County. And it's really important that we make those students feel welcome as well and have programs that help keep them and make them feel safe here. And so that was a great listening session where businesses could really hear some of the concerns of students and things that made them feel welcome or not welcome. We have a monthly meeting with local police. So I meet frequently with our local police chief, Nate Birch, to talk about any issues that are coming up and kind of serve in some ways as like a liaison between the Spanish-speaking community and Nate Birch. And he has been very supportive. And we started a Spanish course for police officers because the police officers wanted to learn enough Spanish where they could help talk with Spanish speakers and help them not feel afraid when they saw a police officer. So we started that, and that's been some of our work with safety. For education, we help find teachers and provide support to our dual language immersion programs in Wabash County. So Manchester Elementary and Manchester Intermediate School have a dual language program where students do 50% of the day in Spanish and 50% of the day in English, and Wabash schools also have a program like this. Manchester Early Learning Center also just started a dual language classroom for the 3 to 5-year-olds so that it could kind of feed in to our different dual language programs. For me personally, with my background in Hispanic linguistics, there's a lot of research about how language access builds equity and belonging in communities. And so I really see the dual language programs in Manchester Early Learning Center in our schools as this kind of slow burning way to build relationships. Research shows that when Spanish speakers receive literacy support and when they can read and write in their native language, it not just makes their Spanish better, it makes their English better. It makes their math scores better. It makes their science scores better. And so it actually helps. That's kind of how we sell this to administrators as well, as it helps standardize testing. It's not really, some people think sometimes, well, if they're learning more Spanish, does that mean they're learning less English? In fact, it's the opposite. If you're getting a solid foundation in your native language, you're better able to learn a second language. And for English speakers, it also provides a lot of additional benefits. As I'm sure some of you know, learning a second language provides more cognitive flexibility. It can delay the onset of Alzheimer's and dementia. It also, research has showed when kids learn a second language and they see pictures of people that look differently than themselves, they're more likely to rate those people. If they've learned a second language, they're more likely to rate those people as being a good friend, also being smart, like somebody I'd like to spend time with. Some other benefits that we see in those programs are the parents get to know parents they might not have gotten to meet otherwise because their kids are going through elementary school in these cohorts. So there's lots of great benefits to these dual language programs, which is partly why we support those for Wabash County and help provide help finding teachers and things like that. We've also been working to foster a relationship between Manchester University, public schools, Manchester Early Learning Center, as well as adult education, so the Learn More Center, because they all have similar needs. Manchester University has been working to grow their Spanish major in the last couple years and has been working to kind of revive that. At the same time, there's a huge need for Spanish-speaking teachers and bilingual teachers in our school. And so kind of facilitating that connection of providing support to that program so that that can feed into our local schools is also important. Additionally, there is kind of an ELL, English Language Learner track at the university that helps then feed into the Learn More Center, which provides adult education classes, many of which are English Language Learner classes. And so kind of making sure that all those points are connected. It helps provide more staff for our schools, as well as our adult education centers, but then it also provides university students with this hands-on experience and connection to the Manchester and Wabash County communities. We also started a citizenship class in partnership with the Learn More Center. I had a heritage speaker, so somebody whose parents immigrated from Mexico, but who grew up in the United States. They did an internship with me last spring, and we purchased a curriculum for a citizenship class, and then helped develop a citizenship class in partnership with the Learn More Center. And then the Learn More Center then was able to take that over as part of their courses and programming. Last week, we were able to go do mock interviews with students, mock citizenship interviews with students who had gone through the course. and Manchester University students and community members came and participated in those interviews. And that citizenship test is really hard. I don't think I would have passed it, but it was really impressive to see what a great course they were doing at the Learn More Center and how those students were performing on that. We also organized the Hispanic Heritage Festival. We just had the second festival this past September. That was something that came up in the needs analysis. Every single Spanish speaker that I interviewed, unprompted, when I said, what would make you feel like you belonged here, they said, I wish we had a festival for Wabash County that celebrated that this was our home. And I was like, that's a pretty clear, easy thing that we, it's kind of the low-hanging fruit of, okay, we can absolutely do that. So we have done that 2 years in a row. This past year, it was in the park. And it was really lovely to have it in the park, but something we want to improve next year is making sure it's a little bit accessible, because it's a little bit hard to kind of get down into that area. And so I think next year we might have golf carts and things like that to help increase accessibility in the park. But yeah, so that's one of our kind of education initiatives, as well as an outreach initiative. And then the last prong that we have is community events and programs and helping with resource navigation. So the outreach, the Hispanic Heritage Festival provides an opportunity for businesses to network with Spanish speakers and newcomers to Wabash County. We also started a Life Navigator course at the North Manchester Public Library, and that we are actually having our second session tonight. So the Life Navigator course has 6 different kind of monthly sessions. We meet the third Thursday of each month. Last year was about some of the basic resources in the county. This month's is about healthcare and access to healthcare. And so Parkview is coming to tell people about the different resources. Bowen Health is coming to talk about their nurses and their dentists and their mental health resources that they have now. Bright Point is coming to talk about how can you sign yourself and your children up for Medicaid. And so experts from these different organizations come and do this workshop, and then we translate the PowerPoint into English and Spanish, so that if you're a newcomer who's an English speaker in Wabash County, you can understand the presentation, or if you're a Spanish speaker, you can also have access to all these resources. So we do kind of a 45-minute presentation, and then we do 45 minutes of times when individuals can meet with experts from these organizations to get help signing up for Medicaid or signing up for mental health resources, et cetera. So we just started that. We're in the second month, and the presentation for that is tonight at the library. And we've received great feedback. That kind of came out of a need to provide people with more help connecting to resources. We also send them home with a PowerPoint presentation so that they have all the kind of emergency numbers in Spanish and English as well. So those materials kind of serve 2 purposes. So that was also started, our Life Navigator series. With, oh yeah.
There's another important institution in our community that I didn't hear you mention anything, and it I think has need for some help.
85 Hope?
The jail.
Oh, the jail, okay.
And direct information from women in the jail is that it's the worst jail in the area.
Huh.
And jailers are leaving the jail.
Uh-huh.
And they don't even have a window in that thing, a new one. And we're very disappointed in what we've learned. We weren't even asked if they make the thing, and then didn't get any input, no outside thing. They're in this cave with no outside access. There's one, in I guess one big room where there's a little skylight like.
Yeah.
So what can we do about that?
The jail, that isn't something that we have worked on yet, but that's something that we can add to our agenda, absolutely, and add to our conversations. I know that the only contact I know that somebody has had with the jail is I know that the library, the North Manchester Public Library, started donating books to the jail because they heard from inmates that they were wanting books. But we can absolutely add that to our, I can bring that to my steering committee as a need in the county that we should explore.
The caring women is some of the ways that I've gotten some
Yeah.
And there's no woman counselor or anything
Yeah.
along that line.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you bring that up. Thank you. I'll make a note of that, and then I'll be sure to bring that. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah.
I just had a question. What is the safety issue for the Hispanic people? Because we
Yeah.
know that ICE has picked up the head chef of our restaurant up here, and it
Mhm.
just grieves me greatly. But
Yeah.
even when you had the festival,
Mhm.
I feel for the people that, I just wondered how you, and if they go to try to get their papers done, they're taken before they can do that.
Yeah.
Is that part of your?
Yeah, that's something that we've worked a lot on. So for the festival, for example, we had an ICE plan and different volunteers keeping an eye out for ICE and kind of had a protocol where if ICE were to show up, how can we make sure that we get people out safely? That was a really hard call with the festival. We questioned whether we should have it because we didn't want to draw community members out and then put them in danger. So somebody asked about safety and what are we doing for a Spanish-speaking community. So the Diversity Coalition absolutely has to, we have to operate within the law, right? But there are also things that we can do to protect our community. And so I would say one of the main things for safety has been building a relationship with our local police. So that was kind of a big initiative that we worked on, providing that Spanish for police officers course, because that also provides police officers and our law enforcement with cultural competence. People are sometimes driving or doing things in a way, not because they're wanting to do something illegally, but because they don't understand the rules. And so how can we maybe explain those rules in a way? Sometimes people come from places where there's a lot of mistrust of law enforcement, and so they might be very afraid to stop. And so working with our police, I think, has been a huge positive in increasing the safety. In terms of ICE, a lot of times places find out about ICE, after ICE has come. We have not had ICE come to Wabash County, but we also have kind of a phone tree, kind of a plan for how can we spread the word if there is an ICE sighting. There are a lot of organizations and individuals that reach out to me when they hear of rumblings of ICE in different places, but we also have to make sure that we're operating right within the law.
do you have an update on the family that was affected?
On the family so the question was, is there an update on the family that was affected? Yes, so I met with the wife of the husband. The husband was stopped actually in Wabash, at a Walmart in Wabash, and I met with the wife and then talked to our police chief, and our police chief actually met with her too to see how he could, she wanted to make sure she still had contact with her husband, and really she just wanted a chance to talk with the police chief, and so the three of us sat down and I helped translate, and I would say it was a really positive meeting where, everybody was kind of on the same page of how can we make sure that you are able to maintain contact. Right now, one of the strategies of ICE is they move people from place to place very quickly so that people are hard to track. And then when they're hard to track and you don't have contact with them, it's hard to make sure that there can be lawyers. One of the things that we did last December, we worked closely with an organization called Immigrant Connection, which provides subsidized legal services. And Immigrant Connection came and did Know Your Rights workshops for our different community organizations and educators and leaders about what is the information that we can share with families to keep them safe. So we pass out red cards, which are cards that in English and Spanish where you can show it to an ICE officer and it talks about your different rights. We talked with people about sometimes ICE will come and they will have a warrant, but if it's not signed by a local judge, it's not actually an official warrant, and sometimes they will present warrants and take people even though they're not signed by an official judge. And so we did a workshop in English for community leaders and educators, and then we also did one in Spanish for Spanish speakers so that everybody could be informed about what are the actual documents that we need to look for you don't have to open your door. You know, we talked about you can ask ICE to slide papers under the door and you can check and make sure that it is signed by the appropriate people. And if it's not, you know, you don't, if it is, you do have to comply. But if it's not, you don't have to comply. Talking with parents about making sure that they have the number of a lawyer, right, memorized. And we talked with schools and parents about making sure if mom and dad aren't able, you know, if they don't come home from work and nobody can pick up their child, is your child on medication? Does somebody else know what medication your child takes? And those types of things. So that's something. We also work with families to make sure that if somebody were abducted by ICE, who else could the child stay with? And can the child be reunited? If the child doesn't have a passport, they cannot be reunited with the parent. So if a parent is abducted and sent to Mexico and the child doesn't have a passport, they can't be, right, we can't send them to Mexico. And so we have taken more of a kind of proactive approach of we're trying to educate both businesses and schools about how they can then educate the parents and their employees. And then we also work with Spanish-speaking families so that they know, you know, they know their rights and they know how to tell an official warrant from an unofficial one, but also how could they keep their families safe, or, you know, if the worst happens, like, you know, the chef was picked up by ICE, how can we make sure your family can keep functioning, your children get medication, and that's a huge disruption to a family, but how can you also mitigate that if you have young kids? It's not a ideal solution, right? So having people plan for that is really scary and very sad, but it's also something that's one of the things we do have control over. And so we work to do that too. One of kind of tying into safety, oh, this went off. One of the things that kind of, I wonder if it fell asleep. Do you know how I turn it back on? Oh, he's turning it back on. One of the things that we've been working on is that kind of ties into safety is Wabash County just received a certified welcoming designation from an organization called Welcoming America. So in our first month, or in our first year, we used the needs analysis data to kind of lead our agenda and what we were working on. And this past year, we worked the whole year on getting this certified welcoming designation. And so in order to get this designation for the county, we had to make sure that we had 17 different policies, programs, and people in place at the county level that made Wabash County welcoming to everybody. And so one of those things was working with local police, right? And so making sure that your local police aren't actively trying to deport people. And so that was something of building relationships with our police. We also had to ensure that there was language access in our schools and our libraries, so working with local libraries on making sure that, you know, our materials sent home in English and Spanish, or not even just English and Spanish, but the native languages of all of your students, right? If you have a Taiwanese student, are there materials for that family as well? So ensuring our schools had language access. We also worked within our local government to get somebody from local government. So Welcoming America believes that these welcoming changes are more sustainable when our local government is involved. So we worked with a local person at the county level. Here's just a couple quotes. So we just received the certified welcoming designation, and Julie Garber, Vice President of Strategic Initiatives at the Community Foundation, said, "I heard filmmaker Ken Burns say recently that diversity is another way of saying e pluribus unum. I love that. For Wabash County, diversity is not a matter of favoring anyone, it's a matter of including everyone. We are looking for the talents of many. We hope more people want to live in Wabash County for the opportunities we have and the commitment we have to education, culture, employment, and upward mobility. We welcome all." Mayor Scott Long also said, "The designation shows Indiana and the world that we are a welcoming county in this state." So one of the things that the city of Wabash has been doing and Grow Wabash County has been doing is also working to bring international businesses to Wabash County, right? And so we want Wabash County to be so welcoming and have such good policies and programs in place that businesses want to make this a home as well, because if they do, it will increase the numbers of students in our schools and it will help reverse our population decline. And so that's kind of been, we've kind of taken the approach of welcoming work as part of economic development, because in a time when our nation is really politically divided, if we approach it that way, that's something that everybody can get on board with, right? And so we value the uniqueness of everybody, but if we are also able to frame this work through the lens of economic development, that helps us get support from companies and businesses who maybe are a little hesitant about welcoming work initially. So that was a huge, that was something that was really exciting for us in Wabash County last month when we received this seal. It will be something that businesses can include on, on their brochures. They can say we're a certified welcoming county. It will be something that schools can include. It will hopefully make newcomers to the area ask about it, be like, what does it mean to be a welcoming county? And then we can kind of delve into, here's all the different policies and programs that you have to have in place to be certified welcoming. There was, Fort Wayne received this recently, or Allen County, and there has been some pushback. The Indiana Attorney General, I think, didn't quite understand what the certified welcoming designation was, and accused some organizations like Amani and Catholic Charities of human trafficking, and which was very disappointing in a time where this work is really valuable and should be celebrated. They're now having to kind of go through these investigations from the Attorney General. And so, to be transparent, we received this for Wabash County, but I don't think that we're kind of trying to figure out if we're going to do a press release or how we're going to share this news, because we don't want to draw unwanted attention to Wabash County. And so this is a time where we want everybody to feel welcome. So it will probably be something that we let businesses share internally and do that way, so that way they can attract talent, let their employees know that they're welcome, schools can share it, but we might not do a big press release at this time, just to protect everybody in our county. So it's a unique time to be doing this work, but you can, it's still possible to continue doing it. One of our programs is we do a bilingual story hour at North Manchester Public Library once a month. And so this is that bilingual story hour. That's designed to give exposure to young kids in Spanish, but also if there are Spanish speakers in the community that want to sign up for a library card, I'm there to provide support if they want to sign up for a library card. This is a picture of some of the citizenship classes that were done by the Manchester University student and the teacher at the Learn More Center, and now the Learn More Center has adopted those as part of their programs. This is a picture of the community conversations event that I mentioned. Here, there was the 50 people at Manchester University. Here we had about 25 people at the Wabash Carnegie Library. But that was a really wonderful turnout that we were really excited about. We also did a bilingual community potluck. So something that I've been doing with Alex Downard from the Community Foundation is we do kind of quarterly, we do a focus group with Spanish speakers where we just ask about what do you really like in Wabash County, what makes you feel welcome, what resources do you use, what resources are missing that we could help improve. And one of the things that one Spanish speaker said is, it's great to have these workshops and programs, but I really just want a way to make some friends. I don't want to have to go to this really formal thing. I'd like to just kind of meet people. And so we did a bilingual potluck and had a great turnout. One of the things that we're exploring is if we do another bilingual potluck, we would love people to send us their recipes maybe ahead of time. And if we start doing these yearly or twice a year, we'd love to put a cookbook together of the tastes of Wabash County from everybody in Wabash County, especially people coming from different countries. So this was our bilingual potluck, and we had conversation cards in English and Spanish on the table. we did an entrepreneurship workshop in Spanish, and we're working with the Northeast Indiana Innovation Center to provide workshops in Spanish about how to start a business, hopefully monthly or at least quarterly, so several times a year. So this was our first one. A business owner from Fort Wayne came and kind of talked about the ins and outs of starting a business and being an entrepreneur, specifically within the context of rural Indiana. And this was everybody that attended. I can say that after this workshop, I know of 3 or 4 people that kind of were able to kickstart their businesses, which were really exciting. But that's a service that we're hoping to help provide more support for, because it helps provide a lot of additional income opportunities for our community. This is some pictures of our Hispanic Heritage Festival from last year. So we collaborated with Honeywell and Sing Me Home Festival and Manchester Alive from the town of Manchester. And Honeywell helped sponsor some different bands to come in. They sponsored a dance group that performed with all the dual language programs and performed indigenous dances from the south of Mexico and some different regions in Latin America. And then the students performed at the festival. And so we also had somebody named Cote who performs kind of bilingual kids concerts. And then we had 9 different Spanish-speaking vendors from Wabash County and the Fort Wayne area come. This is our Life Navigator series that I mentioned. So tonight is our second one on navigating healthcare and mental health resources in Wabash County. And then why does this work matter? So why are we doing this? It strengthens our towns and businesses. It helps strengthen our schools. It helps grow our populations. There are many intergenerational benefits of a more welcoming community for children and grandchildren of immigrants. But it also helps us attract talent to Wabash County, which is better for everybody. If you're wondering how can I get involved, you're welcome to attend through events. You can also support the Diversity Coalition or organizations we work with through different partnerships. One of them in particular, a new kind of tricky thing that we have been navigating is the government has frozen vouchers for low-income families. So there used to be vouchers for daycare or before and after school care for low-income families. And those are now frozen, and we don't know when they'll be unfrozen. And so there are 3 Spanish-speaking toddlers, 3 2-year-olds at Manchester Early Learning Center that we're working to fundraise money for so that they can keep going to Manchester Early Learning Center because they don't have access to our government vouchers. I can say from personal experience, I spend a lot of time helping families get daycare vouchers and it helps the parents to work. You know, some of them are single moms or families where they really need both incomes. And so if the kids are in a good early childhood education center, it allows both the parents to work. It's also a really great opportunity for these kids because they get really quality care, they get food provided for free. We speak Spanish at home with our son Ruben, and they put 2 of the Spanish speakers in the same, 2 of these toddlers in Ruben's class, and it's really wonderful to be able, you can see this little bilingual community forming within a classroom. But then I've also gotten to see, wow, all of these kids are getting the same high level quality of care each day that they might not be getting elsewhere if they were in like an at-home facility or something. So that is something that we're working to help fundraise money for. There's also a baby that a family would like to put in the early childhood center, but the government has still frozen those vouchers. So we calculated to help fund these kids, we probably need to raise at least $15,000 just to get these toddlers and this baby to May at Manchester Early Learning Center. After that, when kids turn 3, they can go to Head Start for free out at Laketon, but just to kind of keep them all in the daycare classroom, we're working to fundraise that. So those are some opportunities for involvement. donating to the Diversity Coalition or donating to places that we're working with, like Manchester Early Learning Center. And I put the phone number of the director on your handout. So the director is Rachel Maines, and she has been working to kind of transform Manchester Early Learning Center into a Montessori-inspired early learning center. So in Wabash, there's a really wonderful Montessori school, an early learning center in Wabash that Addie Nair is the director of. And Manchester's, you have to go have specific criteria to be an official Montessori school, but Manchester's working to be more Montessori inspired. So getting teacher training in Montessori education, transitioning the materials in the classroom to be more independent and Montessori focused. So that's an organization we work with a lot, but have been working with a lot since all of these vouchers are frozen. I'll stop here. A couple questions I had for you guys are, what are the people, places, or programs that make you feel like you belong in Wabash County? Which I would love to hear that from you guys. And then what are your hopes and dreams for Wabash County to become a more welcoming place? So I know that you mentioned the jail, right? That would be something that would help Wabash County become a more welcoming place. But I'll stop talking now. That way we have some time for discussion. But yeah, does anybody want to launch into what are the places that make you feel welcome? Or do you have any questions?
Having a wonderful public library.
Yeah. We've also been working with the library. They have in their strategic plan a lot of this welcoming work in place. When we got our certified welcoming designation, the library was one of the Wabash Carnegie Library and the Manchester Library were two of the places that we worked with a lot. And the library received a grant to expand their bilingual books, and they have like a dedicated section for children and adults. But they've also been working monthly to switch at least one of their signs so that one sign is bilingual. And so, which I think is a really great kind of, it feels overwhelming if you're like, we have to make everything bilingual, but they're taking it one sign at a time as part of their plan, which I think is a really great idea. But when we did our audit for our certified welcoming designation for the county, they listed our libraries as one of the best assets in Wabash County, and I think they're right. Yeah, they do a lot. So I'm glad the library feels welcome. It's my favorite place to go to. Yeah.
Honeywell would be another one.
Yeah.
Honeywell.
Yeah, what about Honeywell makes you feel welcome?
I don't go often, but it often has programs that include people from the county, and it just expands our cultural experience.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Honeywell has programs for a lot of different ages and abilities. One of their programs it's Community Arts, and the unity is big. It helps provide bilingual programs in schools, and I know they have brought different artists into the schools, and I think you're right. They do a lot of really wonderful programming.
I'm wondering about the hospital, how diverse the staff is there at helping people with their concerns.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know the specific statistics for the hospital. I do know that they're sending a bilingual pediatrician tonight to our Life Navigator series. So that's a question I'll ask. I don't know the answer to that now. I know they do have some bilingual staff, and that's something that they're looking to do, and that they have translators that can be available. A lot of the translation services that hospitals use, it's ones that you can do on an iPad, so you can phone a translator in. But I think that's something they're working on. I forgot to mention, one of the organizations coming tonight is also 85 Hope. And so some of you, I think, are familiar with 85 Hope. They also provide affordable healthcare services There used to be a place in Manchester, now there's not, it's just in Wabash, because I think the person that was doing it in Manchester maybe retired, but that's also a really important service. And I think sometimes they have a bilingual staff person, but that's something that they're working on. I think that's an area for growth, right? That's an area for improvement in a lot of our healthcare facilities, yeah.
Do you have any funds to help people, like for their transportation?
That's a great question. We don't have specific funds allocated for that, but I do work with Living Well in Wabash County. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's they help provide transportation in Wabash County. So if we've worked with them to help get transportation set up for people. They will come to Manchester, and I want to say it costs about $7 each way. So it is a little expensive. You know, since we don't have great public transportation. But we do collaborate with Living Well to kind of, I would say one of the things the Diversity Coalition does, we try not to repeat resources if they're already existing, but we try to kind of like we collaborate with the Learn More Center. We don't need to offer English language learner classes because they exist. So we purchased, for example, the citizenship curriculum for them so that they could teach that course. So we're trying to find ways to partner with them. But one thing about transportation that is a risk for people if they might not have documentation. And so I do know of different people in the community that help provide transportation sometimes to people who might not be able to have it. Yeah, that's great. That's great to know. Yeah. Uh-huh.
I'm wondering what the situation is with the college's Spanish program. Do they provide a major, or how does that?
That's a great question. The situation with the college Spanish program. So the Spanish professor last year resigned, and then they took the Spanish position out of the budget, so I have been teaching as an adjunct for the Spanish program, and we helped develop a Spanish certificate. It's called Spanish for Educators certificate. So I teach that Wednesday nights. And we have community members and teachers who want to increase their Spanish speaking proficiency, as well as college students in that class. And we tried to reduce the cost. So I think it's $600 for like a semester, but if you are a Manchester Community Schools employee, it counts as your professional development. And so all the teachers get reimbursed. So students don't have to pay an extra cost, and then teachers can get reimbursed, and so they can take that for free. I'm writing a proposal to the president that they expand funds, because last time when I met with the president and the vice president at the university, I asked, are you wanting to grow the Spanish program still because you didn't renew? You took the position for a faculty member out of the budget. And they said they would like to grow it, but my position is I don't think you can create a program if you just pay somebody an adjunct salary, because you're not paying for the administrative costs, and an adjunct salary is, specifically the one at Manchester, is a fraction of what is offered other places. So it's not, I don't think it's a sustainable solution to keeping their program alive. So I'm actually writing a proposal that they provide like a part-time, maybe a part-time opportunity for at least 2 classes a semester, partly because we desperately need bilingual teachers in our schools. We desperately need bilingual healthcare professionals, bilingual professionals in general. And, not only is bilingual ability important, but also being bicultural, or at least culturally competent. And so that's something that you get in language courses, not just the language, but you're learning about the culture and the customs, which can be helpful as well. Does that answer your question? So it's not looking great currently, but we're submitting a proposal to hopefully help improve it. Because I think it's really important for the community that Manchester University continue to have a Spanish program. Right now, since they don't have a professor, they cut the major, but they still have a minor, And we started the certificate as a way to hopefully bolster the program, because it allowed us to bring community members into the classes and provide an opportunity that was more than just, you're studying literature and linguistics, but we're teaching. My PhD was in task-based language teaching. So for Spanish for Educators, me and 2 other researchers from IU surveyed educators about what were the needs that you had in Spanish in your schools, and then we developed a curriculum based on the needs that teachers and educators have, and you order them easiest and most frequent to hardest and least frequent. And so last night I taught this class, and so our task last night was talking about inappropriate and appropriate behavior in the classroom or in a work setting. And so learning how to talk to students about their emotions, but also when I feel happy, I do this. When I feel sad, I do this. And so, when I'm sad, it's not appropriate for me to hit my friend over the head with a shoe, And so that's what we're working on right now. So if you have a chance to talk to anybody, you can advocate for the Spanish program. So, yeah.
Are there people in the Spanish community that are age-wise to be going to Manchester University?
Yeah. Oh,
There
yeah.
are, okay.
Yeah.
And that would seem to be another. I think we have stereotypes of thinking the Spanish are the ones that bring in the crops and the things, and not having college-educated people there.
Yeah, for example, somebody that did an internship with us, there's actually been 2 different Spanish speakers that did internships with the Community Foundation or the Diversity Coalition from the community that were at Manchester. One was studying psychology, one was studying pre-law, and one of the trends that we've seen is specifically for Spanish-speaking kids, they often want to stay close to home. They're really connected with their families. Sometimes they live in multi-generational households. And so that's exactly the talent that we want for Wabash County. They are bilingual, bicultural, and they want to stay in Wabash County. At a time when we're seeing everybody leave. So I think that, those are the students that we want to retain, in addition to everybody else. Right. So I think that's a really important student to provide a lot of support to. And I think one of the biggest areas of need is Spanish speakers in Wabash County, but something that Julie Garber and I talk a lot about is, diversity isn't just supporting Spanish speakers in Wabash County. It's a big part of the work that we do, but there are a whole bunch of other types of diversity and a lot of other types of work, and we work to hopefully try to stay balanced. And so we did like a Juneteenth celebration and kind of community conversation at the Wabash County Museum. We're wanting to do focus groups with different students from Manchester, specifically students of color, to see, what are the places that you feel welcome? How can we improve this? We want more business owners from other places in the world. It helps increase the products that we have. It helps increase the languages that we have. And so I also think there's a lot of work to do on other types of diversity in the county and making sure they feel welcome.
Is Koi Japan here connected with all this?
We've worked with Koi as well, but those are exactly the types of businesses that we want to attract. I think they are. I should check in again, but they seem to be doing well. Yeah. Koi, in case anybody doesn't know, it's it's a sushi restaurant that took the place of the Main View in downtown Manchester. It's really great if you're looking for food. So, yeah.
Well, one last question. Anybody have a question for Mackenzie?
The reason I asked about the transportation help was because this family that I've been helping drive sometimes need a new transmission in their car. Mm-hmm. And it's like $3,500 to $4,000. And our church can help some, but I don't think our church can do that all.
Right,
And
right.
that's why I was wondering if there's any grants or anything.
Yeah, we don't currently have any grants, but that could be something. We look into, or it could be. I don't know if Community Foundation does grants to individuals, but the Community Foundation sometimes has different grants, so it could be worth. Yeah, Julie Garber would be a great person to ask. Yeah, but yeah, I know sometimes they don't always do them for individuals, but there could be something that works there. Yeah. Transportation is a really hard thing in the U.S. in particular, yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Mackenzie.
Thank you.
I've heard her speak now 3 times, and every time I learn some new things, and I learn some more about her, and she's just a perfect individual with her background and
I don't
her
know
skills.
about that.
Well, I'm suggesting that.
Well, thank you.
So we're really fortunate to have Mackenzie here in our community. So let's thank her for her presentation today.
Well, thank you for having me. I was saying before, I hadn't really been in the chapel since elementary school. We used to do our violin concerts in here. So it's nice to be back in here with you guys. So thank you so much.